Welcome to Global Investment Voice, where we explore investment migration issues and opportunities from around the world. With a special focus on the U.S. EB-5 Immigrant Investor Program, we'll also cover citizenship and residency by investment programs from around the globe. If you're an investor, fund manager, developer, or enterprising entrepreneur and want to get the most out of these global investment migration programs, you have come to the right place. I'm Mark Deal, and I'll be your co-host on this journey. I'm joined by your host attorneys Mona Shaw and Rebecca Singh, as well as other investment migration leaders from around the world. So let's get into Global Investment Voice.
Mona, Rebecca, we are back, and there has been a lot in the news lately about this $5 million gold card visa, but honestly, not a lot of new information, and really everything's died down since the initial buzz. So what's going on with that?
Well, Mark, there is still a lot of unknowns out there, and there's a lot of inferring, a lot of press releases out there. But Mona, we want to get through this. We want to get to the meat of it. We have a lot to talk about. So give us a little bit about what are we expecting to see with the gold card visa?
Right, straight to the point, Rebecca, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, also, we have a wonderful guest who is going to be able to shine a lot of other areas and information on this topic. But just before we get to that, first of all, what is this gold card visa? Well, this is something obviously the Trump administration has just told us all about. We know that it's not an investment at risk. It's a $5 million donation going directly to the U.S. Treasury. So no return of capital or no interest earned. No job creation required. So far, we understand that anyone coming into this would only be taxed on U.S. income, not on worldwide income. But it would still have similar benefits to the green card. And we're expecting that these benefits would carry over to derivatives. Another pointer is that we've picked up is that there is no quota, unlike the current employment-based visas. And we're not sure, no information yet, whether there are residency requirements. Like, for example, the green card, the U.S. has to be your residence and you have to make an entry once every 6 months. So there's a lot to discuss, even though we don't have that many details. But I would love to introduce to the audience today somebody who's a repeat guest. And we love to have her back, Jill Jones from JTC. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you, Mona and Rebecca. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
So Mona, you brought up a good point earlier. You said that the gold card visa is going to work alongside EB-5, not actually replace it, as we're seeing with a lot of press releases out there. Jill, what are you seeing or what are you thinking?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, Rebecca. I think that's one of the biggest changes we've seen since this gold card visa was announced. Initially, there was a lot of hysteria in the EB-5 community about it's going to end. We better hurry up and get all of our petitions in so that we get them processed. But when people slow down to think about what this gold card visa really means, it really is something that can live and should live alongside of EB-5. We see that there's a very different motivation, a different demographic that would be attracted to it. And it makes sense to live with both of them hand in hand.
I do agree with you, Jill. There have been other programs which have used gold card visas, and they didn't work out so well. I believe, Rebecca, the UK had one, New Zealand have one. Didn't Thailand have one?
Yes. I mean, we could keep going. Ireland. There's a lot of countries out there that did have this gold visa, which didn't really work out for some of the countries. There were a lot of issues that they saw and ended up closing down some of the programs.
I'd like to add one thing there. What really strikes me about the whole idea of the gold card visa, especially here in the United States, one of the negative comments people have had for years about EB-5 is that people are buying green cards. And it left a very bad taste in the mouths of the American public. So we've fought very hard to get people to understand that it's not just paying for a visa. You're creating jobs and you're promoting the economy.
Exactly. Yeah, this brings me to a lot of points that I really wanted to discuss as well. I mean, we'll talk about the EB-5 program in a moment. Buying a green card has been an anathema for Congress for so many years. I remember Dianne Feinstein complaining like anything that Congress in America, we don't sell green cards. So here's my point. What if people go ahead, they actually donate 5 million, which, is doubtful, but that's another topic. And suddenly the Democrats come back in and then they get rid of the program.
I think that's a very real possibility.
It's going to be the same issues as what do you do with those who've already applied and who's come in under this gold card status? Do you still get permanent residence? Are you still on your way for citizenship? I think there's going to be a lot of issues needed to be addressed with this new concept.
If it does become a real thing, if there is a gold card visa and people apply for it and get it, I don't see that there's any way to retract it. I think that would be met with litigation.
I agree. And I see that is going to be there. And I'll tell you what I think, Jill, that this whole issue about worldwide taxes and not being subject to worldwide taxes if you come in on the gold it's going to leave a sour taste in the mouth for many people. Because there are many examples of people who've come into this country in different ways, struggled, built up, done well here, but paid their taxes properly.
That's right.
Yeah.
They didn't love it, but they did it.
As we've been reading all the press releases, I think there are so many like Henley's, Financial Times, they're all saying that 5 million is just that little bit too much for a donation.
Well, I think the question is it too expensive? Is it priced out? The UK program, that was at £2 million. And that was quite a few years ago. So is it really priced out?
The UK program, just like some other programs, is not a donation. You put your money in bonds and you got it back.
And you do get it back.
Right. The only thing which is a donation are some of these CBI programs, and those are all under $1 million.
Yeah. I mean, some of those are under 500,000 itself. It's way cheaper than even the EB-5 program. And I think the question is it just goes back to what you said before. Is it then, are you buying a green card? And it just seems that it's for the ultra high net worth, the ultra wealthy, no one else. And how many are there out there that can actually afford this?
That's exactly right, Rebecca. So when we talk about the idea of who this would apply to, the demographic of people that have $5 million liquid and available to purchase a green card, it does exist, but I don't think that there are as many as perhaps the president is hoping for. And in certain cases, maybe that's okay. Maybe there is a family who has this kind of wealth and they're really desperate to get their green card quickly. They don't have time to wait for an EB-5 process to run through.
Yeah. And there are people like that, Jill. But here's my other issue. Do they have problematic money? Because we know they have money. A lot of the Russian oligarchs have money. But Rebecca, you know how much it takes to do source of funds.
Oh, yes. And 5 million, it's not easy to source. We've seen it within the EB-5 program. And I think that's one of my concerns is how much are they going to delve into the sources and path of funds of the 5 million coming in? And we've seen these issues, Mona. We've seen it with programs ending because, a lot of money laundering, tax evasions, corruption going on. But at the same time, is it going to be something like the Caribbean? The Caribbean, we saw issues with not really looking into the sources of investors' funds. And so now they've taken a step back and are looking a bit more and kind of vetting those who are coming in. But these are issues that arose with these other programs.
And Rebecca, I think that's the reason I'm excited to be joining you both today. As a fund administrator in EB-5, there's one thing that I've seen USCIS struggle with. The people who are trained on the immigration side are not necessarily trained on how to trace source of funds.
Right.
But if this gold card is going to run through the Commerce Department, then it's something that maybe there is a skill set that is trained to do deep dive into these $5 million source of funds.
Well, I was hoping that President Trump would bring the Commerce Department out to work with the EB-5 program, Jill, to possibly bring them to look at the projects, because we know that USCIS is totally unequipped and just not developed enough to be able to handle some of the sophisticated projects. Not even sophisticated, any of the projects.
Could the gold visa be a way of getting maybe even the EB-5 program away from the immigration side of things and bringing it to commerce?
I absolutely would hope for that. Absolutely, yes. Because additionally, when you pull it away from immigration, you're not constrained by the number of visas that are available in certain immigration categories. It opens our whole world.
I think that's why the EB-5 community has suddenly got excited, because they started seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
I hope they have.
So in all of the press conferences that we had at the end of February when they first announced the gold card visa, Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary, I believe, in Trump's cabinet, said all kinds of mean things about EB-5, saying it was full of nonsense, make-believe, fraud, this type of stuff. And then when we started digging into Howard Lutnick, we realized that, yes, he used to be part of Cantor Fitzgerald, but he was very much involved with the Hudson Yards development project. And as you know, Hudson Yards financed $1.2 billion in EB-5 investment funds for their project in New York City. So I kind of think that, okay, Mr. Lutnick may know about EB-5, but what I don't think he knows about is just how EB-5 has evolved with the onslaught of the EB-5 Reform and Integrity Act, RIA.
That's exactly right, Mona. So years ago, EB-5 was referred to as the Wild Wild West. And
Right.
it gained that reputation because there really wasn't a lot of regulation. And so myself personally, I've been with a team who was really focused on creating best practices. And those best practices were revolving around integrity. And when the Reform and Integrity Act was actually passed in March of 2022, it was a shining light on, hey, we've been doing the right things all along. Unfortunately for us, the press and the public love to fixate on the drama. And so when they hear a story of a project gone wrong or a project sponsor who did commit fraud, they paint that over the entire industry. And it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, and these are less than 1%. So compared to other frauds that's happening in other investment opportunities out there, it's very little in the EB-5 world. And the fact that we've, like you said, Mona, under the Reform and Integrity Act, we've brought out so much more protection for the investors, oversight, transparency. So I don't know how much of that he understands. That came out
Not a lot, I
years
think.
ago.
Yeah, not a lot, I think, because he still called it low priced. And I don't think 800 to a million is low priced. But Jill, tell our audience a little bit about just how much protection is there for EB-5 right now?
As a fund administrator, one of the key things that our job is to be a second set of eyes.
Right.
And so when you have a project sponsor and you have a developer who are raising money and they're borrowing it to build a project, being free to just spend that money at will is gone. The Reform and Integrity Act actually put in a provision that not only do you need to have a fund administrator or certain audits, but you have to have a co-signatory on certain accounts. The EB-5 funds have to be held in a separate operating account, not commingled with any other operating funds. And the fund administrator needs to co-sign every time those disbursements go out. And so you're going to be looking at the business plan to see what are the expected outflows of funds, what is the expected timing, and really the opportunity for nonsense or for make-believe has been shut down.
I couldn't agree more. But with the gold card, I think this is something, Rebecca, you've mentioned to me several times, that if there's no economic activity the way we have in EB-5, is it just going to drive up real estate and be unpopular?
Well, that was an issue with some of the other programs as well. So Portugal, Spain, Ireland, those are the programs that shut down. But Portugal modified it. And so did Greece, because they saw that you just have the ultra net worth coming in, purchasing property, and they're just driving up the cost and the living expense for the actual local. So what does that do for the U.S. if you're just coming in? It's going to make prices drive up even more. And hopefully this is what would happen, is that those coming in under the 5 million gold card would come in, create businesses in the U.S., because now you have the opportunity to expand your business in the U.S. without getting another type of visa. You could travel in and out with any issues, stay out as long as you want. But are they actually going to come in and spend and do what they say they're going to do? Or are they just coming in and just like we said, drive up the prices without actually causing any economic benefits to the U.S.? That's some of the issues and concerns, but I would hope, because it's not really a requirement, like the EB-5 is a requirement that you have to create jobs. It has to have an economic benefit. There's an econ report that comes out with the regional center programs. So you have to create 10 full-time jobs. Is that going to be an issue?
You know, honestly, what I hope is that the $5 million goes to pay down the debt, the national debt. In that way, it's not competing. And it's serving a purpose that the American public can really wrap their hands around.
Jill, how many 5 millions do we really need? This is $1 trillion economy. We're talking about, I would say maybe in a year, all of these programs have had less than 1,000 people come in. And 1,000 is a lot. I would say less than 100 people would probably come into this.
I would agree with you. I think if we look at the demographic of people that have that kind of wealth, a large chunk of them are already here in the United States. And when you boil down the ones who are not here yet, I'm not sure that a high percentage of them are looking to come here. They're doing quite well where they are.
Yeah, exactly. I did get a couple of calls, I have to say, over the weekend from people who were interested from South Asia and in those areas. And what had really appealed to them was the taxes. In your opinion, as I've just said before, I don't think you can do that without passing a specific law. Is it possible that people on a gold card could pay different set of taxes?
Possible, I think, is something that we have to keep on our tongues throughout the entire presidency for Mr. Trump. Anything is possible. I think likely, probably not.
The one thing this is all really has shown, though, is how much immigration and investment now are bonded together in a way it didn't used to be. But it is. Investment has become part of U.S. immigration.
Well, I think, Ben, it goes back to the ease of travel and having that passport. A lot of people would love to have the U.S. passport. But at the same time, could you get that from another country? Like we said, the Caribbean offers donations under $500,000. And you could get a passport as well. And they have ease of travel. You could visit, over 180 countries with a Caribbean passport. So is that something they would be looking for here?
Rebecca, I think the one thing we're missing is education. There's no doubt that there are many countries that are seeking a solid education that you could get in the United States. And EB-5 is a vehicle for that.
Yeah, it's the number one reason, I think.
Yeah, so that would help on bringing the cost down at universities. So instead of paying foreign costs, you would pay the in-state tuition. And then I also think it helps because a lot of times we see families that do the EB-5 program for their children, but they end up thinking about the tax benefits. So if I have to pay taxes, there's no point in doing this, but I also have 3 children. So is this a way of helping their derivatives be able to come in without them having to worry about worldwide income taxation?
Rebecca, I think that's a wonderful question. Unfortunately, I just don't think anyone has an answer. We're all sitting here waiting to see what will happen, and we're going to remain optimistic.
Optimistic as to whether it will happen or won't happen. So here's the thing, Joe. We all know that everybody panicked that EB-5 was going to go out when this first came out because they did mention that initially, that EB-5 would be kicked out and replaced. I don't know where the transition happened, but then it came out that, no, you can't do that because EB-5 is in law. You can't. You would have to have Congress take it out. And it's entrenched in the IMAC 1990. So it can't just be dismissed just like that. And the other thing is, we all know that Donald Trump loves investors and his family have used EB-5. There was that huge scandal back in 2017 when the Kushners used EB-5 financing, and Jared Kushner's sister, Nicole, was at an EB-5 seminar in Beijing. And that was the press's whole thing. So I really don't see this administration there to knock out EB-5 at all. Do you?
I would agree with you. And I think there has been some footage released of a cabinet meeting where President Trump actually was saying that EB-5 should stay around. And I'm hopeful that that comment lasts longer than Secretary Lutnick's comment that it should go away as nonsense.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think it's because, like we were talking about before, with the $5 million going, like he's hoping that goes towards, the Treasury, and versus where EB-5 is actually here to help finance certain business. So as far as the demographics of those coming in who can afford the $5 million versus who can afford $800,000, it's also the demographics of what's in the United States. One, to get rid of the trillions of dollars we still owe, and the others to help our economy progress.
Right. And also, there are a lot of misstatements in the press that, for example, that this is a Chinese program, which it's not. We all know that there's people from all over the world who come here, that it's fraud and make believe. We all know that no, EB-5 has been used to start off and set up structures and projects all over the country.
That's exactly right. And when we look back at different periods in recent history, for example, 2008, 2009, there was a real crunch on traditional financing, and developers needed to look outside of the box and find alternative sources. EB-5 fit the bill back then. EB-5 is going to fit the bill again as we go through these different phases of times where lending is tight, lending is back, lending is tight. There are needs for it that will continue.
Yeah. And similarly, though, at the same time, the biggest problem that we have in EB-5, Jill, is the adjudication, the problems that we have with USCIS, the visa numbers. I know the EB-5 community is very positive that all of this attention is going to make some differences.
Yes, Mona. I think one of the things the EB-5 industry really needs to be doing right now is to be speaking about what EB-5 needs to be better. The Reform and Integrity Act made a huge leap in confirming that we were more sophisticated and buttoned up. We have integrity measures. The next step now is to make the program bigger. The easiest way to make it bigger is to stop counting derivatives. We're limited to 10,000 visas approximately each year out of the EB-5 program. If we were to stop counting derivatives, that would mean approximately 3 times more families, 3 times more petitions could come in and get a visa each year.
It's 10,000 visas in total, which really is still 3,000 visas on average, if you have husband, wife, and at least one child. So if we could just get rid of, and 3,000 brings in approximately, $6 billion a year? So imagine, imagine if we had 10,000 visas, which I'm sure we would be able to fill up compared to the backlogs, then that would be 6 times 3.
We could see a lot more coming in from the EB-5 program. And, $6 billion is nothing, it's not small, but that will triple. And I think it'll do some good.
From the beginning, many people discussed the fact that Secretary Lutnick kept saying, we have 250,000 people ready. And everyone was saying, where are you getting this number? How do you have 250,000 people? Let me see if either of you can guess, because I figured it out.
Oh, where it's coming from. I'm like, yeah. Show me where is the application? Where are they starting? How are they getting these numbers?
I'm dying to know.
Okay. I got it. It was in a Fox News interview. Secretary Lutnick said there are 250,000 people waiting in line now. And if they are willing to pay $5 million, that's $1.25 trillion. That's just for that line. And then I thought, wow, how out of touch are these people? Does he understand that 250,000 people waiting in line? I'm presuming he's talking about the backlogs and the people who are waiting. They can't necessarily afford $5 million. Yeah, exactly.
I see where you're coming from. There's no way.
Yeah.
No, that was one of my skepticisms from the beginning, is that great, if we could have those who can afford $5 million, let them come in. It would be a great way, another opportunity for those who want to come in on a fast track. But at the same time, I just didn't see the numbers.
Yeah.
I don't. So
I give him credit for being creative, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, but it's a lot of what he has said is just out of touch. He's out of touch with the figures. He's out of touch with RIA. He's out of touch with the amount of people behind. But it goes to show one thing. EB-5 is difficult. The whole concept is hard. Really, so few people from the top to the bottom don't understand. There's only really a handful of people in this country who understand EB-5.
Yeah, but the good thing about this as well, about getting rid of the EB-5 program and all the fraud it's caused, but now they're getting more interest from the Hill. So there's other congressional leaders that are out there that didn't know about the EB-5 program who are now like, wait, there's a program out there that could get me an economic benefit for my area, for my state. So it's actually piqued interest.
I know. Interest. I think, Jill, you'll roll your eyes. You must have rolled your eyes when you heard this. It's like, how many years have we been lobbying on the Hill? And these same guys come up to us now and say, there's such a program?
Actually, Mona, I think it's wonderful. Whatever it takes to bring attention to the program is going to only propel us forward.
Yeah, so the more knowledge, like you said, it's educating. So the more we can get out to everyone on the Hill, others who are interested, I think, this is him coming out with these comments and mentioning EB-5 with the gold card visa has actually helped us.
As long as we follow through, and doing this podcast and putting out our blogs is more important now than ever.
Yeah, because the one thing which I worry about is the fact that all of this talk is creating an uncertainty around the EB-5 system, which really is not good. I mean, the lapse in 2021 was not good, but then we picked it up with showing that we had real legislation. But we're only authorized, Jill, until 2027.
Well, the Regional Center program is only authorized through 2027. EB-5 itself is permanent.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of entrepreneurial projects, man. I think we've seen a lot more of those lately. So that can continue.
Yeah, no matter what. And then, of course, under Rio, there's grandfathering.
Yeah, there's grandfathering, but at least it's there. But it's there till September 30th of 2026. So even though the program is extended through September 30th of 2027 at this point, the grandfathering clause is through 2026. And I know we had that issue when this first came out because we thought they made a mistake. And why would they put 2026? That's still in the law. It hasn't been changed. So if you're interested in EB-5, it would be advisable to get the applications in before September of 2026.
Well, if there's one thing I've learned about EB-5 investors over the years, it's that they seek out certainty. And right now, what certainty we have is that between today and September 30th of 2026, those petitions will be processed in terms with the law that's in effect today. And so I expect a rush of people getting projects and investors in between now and then. And in the meantime, we'll be searching for ways to get that extended beyond 26 and 27.
But Jill, what if we see big backlogs? Because they are predicting backlogs for India coming in end of this year and next year.
For sure. But the good news about that is as long as the petition is filed before September 30th of 2026, the grandfathering provision will protect it. It may take a long time to process, but it will be honored.
Yeah. Well, with all this attention that we are getting, and it's worldwide attention, it's just unbelievable how much everyone in the whole world is like amazed that US is selling their green cards. The one good thing is that the whole global CBI program has been getting attention in the same way. Suddenly, everybody's seeing that the Caribbean, as you mentioned, Rebecca, suddenly it's a really good deal. I don't have to pay $5 million and I get a passport. But this is the trend. We've been talking about this on our podcast series now for some time, just about the fact that people want passports and they want lots of passports right now. And the US is just another one. But Jill, do you think 5 million is just, maybe it's just that Mrs. Jones might have, but I don't think I will have what Mrs. Jones is having right now. Thank you very much.
No, I do think there's a small subset of people who are still going to want that visa, and they're going to want that passport that attaches to the visa. And by all means, let them do it.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% with you as well. I just hope that, again, there's the vetting, I think is going to be important, and making sure that we're not getting, it's just not, what the UK saw with just Russian oligarchs coming in, that we're going to have proper vetting.
Well, to be fair, Rebecca, the UK were criticized about closing their program because they closed it at the beginning of the Ukraine war. And they thought there was a little bit of anti-Russianism.
Yeah, but not just the UK. I mean, the Caribbean side, we saw, we've talked about it, Moto, with Chosky coming in and just using, so vetting has to be there. But let's hope that they said that there would be rigorous vetting to ensure that the applicants, quote unquote, are world-class global citizens. So Let's hope. And that they take RIA in their minds as well and see how much the EB-5 program has changed since then with all the transparency and integrity measures that have been put out there.
And I think that it's going to be taken away as being buying a passport, maybe taken away as being not being such a dirty word anymore. And it may just be an acceptable part of the future here to come. Hey, we've got AI. Do you have got a passport? How many passports do you have? You already have 4 passports. Really?
Yeah, global mobility, right? That's the way the world is going now.
Well, ultimately, Rebecca, I think the important thing to focus on is that attention to the program is good. And for those who are seeking green cards, the mobility is important. The education that people are trying to seek here in the U.S. is important. And it's all attainable in multiple ways. And it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, and if it also brings more interest and I would say perhaps more positive stuff to the EB-5 program as well, that's really where you're looking at, Jill, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like all of us.
If we look at statistics of when fraud happened and how many times it happened, Rebecca said less than 1%. And how many years ago? Probably not since the Reform and Integrity Act was enacted.
Yeah, so Trump's proposed gold card visa program requires a $5 million donation to the U.S. Treasury. It does raise questions about its viability and, of course, its target demographic and where these mythical 250,000 people are at. Jill Jones from JTC, thank you for joining us again on Global Investment Voice and helping us explore how this program might work alongside the existing EB-5 program.
It is a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us today on Global Investment Voice. Do you want to get the most out of global migration and citizenship opportunities? Then head on over to our website at globalinvestmentvoice.com. From there, you can easily search and stream from hundreds of podcast episodes, as well as stay current with the latest migration news and investment opportunities by joining our insider newsletter. The topics presented in this podcast are informational in nature only and are not to be taken as specific legal, financial, or investment advice. Mona, Rebecca, and their legal staff can be reached at mshawlaw.com or by calling their New York office at 212-233-7473.